Hi, everyone. Welcome to You're Running Your Esports Events Wrong. We're really excited about this panel. We are, well, I'll just get into introductions on our next slide. My name is Zander, Merle-Smith. All three of us are from Shenandoah University, and we have an extensive esports program over there. My personal background is I came up loving video games, wanting to run events, but didn't really know the best way to go about it. This was still really early on in kind of the blossoming esports scene, and there still aren't great pipelines, and we're still working on developing those in higher ed. But we were running all of our own grassroots tournaments online and just trying to get some sort of competitive scene evolved around, specifically my background was around Destiny, and that was my big love at the time, and created a fantastic community around that. And of course, games within esports ebb and flow in popularity based on support from developers and audience members. But with Shenandoah University, we absolutely focus on hands-on learning for our students. And so we're running esports events all the time, and they don't always go right. But that's the point. When they're learning, when they have the moniker of student, when they need to be in a situation and a time that they can fail. So I'm an esports lecturer at Shenandoah University. I'll let Chase introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Chase. Let's take a selfie.
Oh. You get him in? Good enough. Thank you.
I'm the dad of the group, but I'm not the dad of the group. Someone else in the group is actually the dad of the group, which is funny. I just have the most behaviorisms like a dad. But my name is Neukam. I'm an esports lecturer at Shenandoah as well. Like Zander said, he, I think, eloquently said a lot of our introduction. We come from the grassroots community doing a lot of events and tournaments. I run and am part of the largest Smash Brothers tournament in Iowa, Honeypot, so I run that. Shout out Smash community. I've also done a myriad of work in professional esports. I was a bracket judge for Dragon Ball World Tour Finals in Vegas a few years ago. I've worked Evo 4 years, so I actually have my Chipotle Evo bag. I carry everything around in. Yeah, I love it. So we have a ton of experience, of wealth of knowledge in esports, and a lot of doing the thing is doing it wrong for a lot of the time, and then realizing, wait, yes, there's much better ways to go about this. So Zander and I hold the same position. I was previously an esports director, and now I do this.
Cool. Hi, my name is Fernando. I'm the coordinator of esports competition. So a little bit different than these two guys. My focus is the competitive side. So the player experience, kind of what players see when they walk into the room, how they perform, and what goes into that. My background is I actually went through the scene competing. So my first competitive game was Gears of War 3. I got signed to a team, Epsilon Gaming, if you know them. I got signed to them for a year and a half. Played in the Houston circuit for Gears of War. So went through that process of getting into esports, understanding more the player experience side. And now I get to do this at the collegiate level and helping our students kind of progress through that and improve their skills.
And there was supposed to be a fourth person, but he was taken ill and actually wasn't able to make MAGFest. So he was our coordinator of esports production, has a lot of information on the balance between in-person experience and the online experience for broadcasting. So we have his information. We're going to try and cover that as best as we can. But know that you're in good hands. But don't just take it from us who say, we know esports. Brad Pitt said, these Shenandoah folks really know how to run an esports event. I'm lying. He didn't say that.
Or he could have. We don't actually know.
That's the first lesson in esports. Question everything.
Okay, so just as a little agenda of this panel, a lot of what this is, and it majors specifically in the educational symposium side of MAGFest, there's a lot of academic, research-based sort of storytelling and lecturing. And a lot of what we come from is going to be more experiential and anecdotal experience. So what we wanted to kick things off with was some of our own personal horror stories running esports events, and why we kind of came to the idea of, hey, we want to talk to people about all the bad things that we've seen and how that we now more or less know how to not do those things anymore and make sure that they don't happen. And then we'll get into planning a schedule, aligning our stakeholders day of or week of, which is incredibly important. Of course, you're going into running the actual event. And then, of course, Ian's portion, pour some out, balancing experiences for online and in person.
I'll add too, at the very end, we'll have our information available, so if you want to follow up with us on anything, more than happy to do that. Event horror stories, who wants to go first?
Oh boy. So mine harkens back way back to, again, the Destiny days. We were contracted to take a portion of a St. Jude fundraising stream, and we had, I think, like a 2-hour block where we're running an online tournament. And the main broadcast PC that we're using to not only host all of the feeds coming in, but then sending them out to Twitch to 5,000 plus viewers, wasn't properly stress tested, and it crashed over and over and over and over and over, and then they pulled us and they gave our block to somebody else, and that is forever. Not only that failure is on me in front of 5,000 people watching, but then also I hate that the idea of St. Jude going, that Zander guy really doesn't know his stuff very well. But that was something that, and Fernando will talk a little bit more about, make sure you test your equipment. That one is certainly a horror story for me.
Yeah, that's a perfect transition. Nando, you want to talk about yours, or you want me to cover mine? All right, so I'll do mine based on a raise of hands. We're gonna do Smash or Overwatch. Raise your hand for Smash. Raise your hand for Overwatch. Smash won. So we were running our third iteration of Honeypot, which was Save the Bees. Everything that we did, we were at St. Ambrose University at the time. I was a director there, and our mascot was the bee. So we said, okay, going into this next big tournament, we're going to take all of our extra proceeds and we're going to give it to the Planet Bee Foundation, which is a group of beekeepers in California that are meant to educate kids on the importance of having bees in culture and hopefully cultivate more beekeepers. Really, really cool opportunity. So the experience was not great the day of the event. We were a cash-only event, as is most grassroots Super Smash Brothers events. Line out the door. We're getting there early for check-in. People are checking in, and my co-organizer, not to be confused, his name is also Chase. We'll call him Booker for this conversation. But Booker goes, I'm going to go make sure our check-in people are prepped if you can make sure back of house is ready. And I'm like, sweet. So I go back of house. I come back in, and there's probably 30, 40 people, probably around the same amount of group of people that are in the room today that have already now walked into the venue. And I go to check in, and I'm like, hey, where can I help? Can you put me in a spot? He's like, yeah, go right here. And someone walks up. I hear next to me, yeah, that'll be $25. I look over. I'm like, wait, our entry fee is $40 to break even. So I do a little powwow with our group, and with the biggest egg on my face I've ever had in my career, I had to walk through the venue and ask people one by one if they could pay an extra $15 so we could break even for the event. It sucked, but what's really cool about the Super Smash Brothers community is everyone got it. Everyone was like, what we had online was actually what was listed. It was $40. It was just when they got the check-in, they were like, oh, this is cheaper than I thought it was. Well, no, not really. So that was the horror story, was going around to 40 people individually and being like, yes, can I have another $15, please?
Mine, I think, comes from an online tournament. So we helped run the broadcast and tournament operations for the Dead by Daylight Mobile Global Championship. And this, we'll talk about it later about aligning your stakeholders, but that's really where like the breakdown came in of we thought we knew what we were supposed to be doing. And Dead by Daylight NetEase had different ideas of what we were supposed to be doing. So in the planning stages of everything, they told us, yeah, for the Discord, you'll have a translator. They're super great. They've been working with us forever. We said, awesome. We got to day one of groups, and the entire Discord server came to a standstill because if you've ever been part of a global tournament or been in an international Discord, one translator doesn't speak all the languages in the world. So the tournament was delayed about 6 hours while we tried to figure out where do we pull a Chinese translator from? Where do we pull a Korean translator from? Where do we pull somebody from the Middle East? We don't know where to get these people from. I stepped in as a Spanish translator for about 4 hours. But yeah, we basically came to a full halt and time zones, people differences. So we had to change the entire round one of a global tournament so that we could actually understand what people were saying and reporting scores properly.
Oof.
So, as we go through today, I wanted to do this at the top to maybe humanize us a little bit. You know, we seem like we're just going, you're running your esports events wrong. It comes from a place of failure. So, we have been through the ringer plenty of times, and we just want to share our experiences and try and help you for any esports events that you're looking to run in the future. At its core, esports events it's mostly focusing on event management, product management, people management, budget management. And so this is going to go into a lot of different aspects of that. Maybe not too in-depth on something that you might be really interested in, and maybe overly in-depth on something that you don't want to hear so much about. So please, afterwards, if there's anything that you want to talk to us a little bit more about, we're going to be, just hanging out up here, or maybe they'll kick us out. They'll probably kick us out. We'll be outside in the hallway if you want to chat a little bit more. So what I didn't realize when I made this slideshow was that I was going to have a room that was 100 feet deep. So I'm really sorry for those in the back. Some of this text is smaller than I had intended. So let me know, or feel free, there's lots of seats up front that you can come if it's a little bit too small. But this is one of the only slides that is this very tiny. When you're looking at event management considerations, this is just a lot of things to think about. It is not an exhaustive list by any means. It is just a plethora of things that you can consider while you are running your event. And I put all this up here to show that it can be a very complex thing. Not every event is going to necessitate you considering all of these things. If you're running an offline tournament in a local venue, you're not going to need to worry about what the internet capabilities of that are going to be. If you're bringing all of your own equipment, you're not going to need to worry about where you're sourcing that. Or if you're running the entire tournament, you're not going to need to worry about staffing. There's a lot of different things, so it's kind of piecemeal. And I put all this in here to say, as one more anecdote, and there's just going to be tons and tons of stories. One of my first iterations of running an esports event was I was a manager at a bar, and I wanted to run a Diddy Kong Racing tournament. On the big, they had already had a nice big screen that I could hook up an HDMI to, and I wanted to host a tournament to try and bring in more patrons, to get them to drink more, and to just trying to serve my bar better by doing what I knew and loved, which was video games. That being said, that was such a small scale, little tiny tournament that I was running. Even so, I had to think about most of the things now I've highlighted in green, right? I needed to think about, okay, what number of players were going to be there? How accessible is the venue? How am I marketing this event? Is there going to be a cost? Where is the main stage, and what does that viewing look like? How are people going to register for it? What I ended up doing was just hounding people at the bar if they wanted to play Diddy Kong Racing, but that's not the point, right? I thought about how I was going to go about that in the future. Is there a budget? Luckily, it's a bar that already has a fire code. I can figure out where the main exits are, make sure everybody knows what that sort of situation is. But for a tiny little tournament like this, I still had to consider all of these different elements going into a small scale event. And it only ramps up from there as you get more people into your tournament, as you work with different venues that you're unfamiliar with, if you're traveling, if it's in your hometown. So that's kind of just setting the stage for the smaller scale all the way up to what we have run now working at Shenandoah, and having to consider housing and travel and where we're sourcing 32 PCs for a Rocket League tournament, things like that. So let's take a look at what a planning schedule might look like, because one of the biggest services you can do for yourself is having adequate planning and adequate time to plan. This is one of the most important pieces, almost as important, or actually probably more important than even week of, just so that you aren't so worried about the week of, and you've kind of got your processes and plans in line. So, hey, we should run an esports event, right? There are a lot of considerations when you're trying to think about what sort of esports event you want to run. Are you doing it, you need to figure out the purpose of the event, right? Are you doing it for fundraising? Are you doing it for community engagement? Are you doing it to build exposure for a specific brand? Maybe it's the bar that you run. So working through your ideation phase and making sure that you've really got the proper scope for what your tournament is ultimately going to be, then you can start getting into development. Wait, what kind of tournament are we going to be running? Figuring out what type of game you want to run, figuring out the date, the name, figuring out sort of how many players or what your overall audience is going to be for that specific tournament. We run a lot of collegiate events, but we also run recruiting events where we focus on high schoolers and making sure that they're aware of our branding over at Shenandoah and the opportunities that we have to offer. So oftentimes we'll, year over year, we run the Virginia High School League Championships, where we bring the best high school teams through play versus into our facilities and run a tournament for them to find the best of the best that semester, that year. So figuring out what the scope and what your target audience is going to be huge through your development phase. Budget. From grassroots, we don't have a lot of money to work with, so we've had to scrap through a lot of our tournaments and figure out what favors can we call in? Who do we know that has 10 Xboxes so we can run a Call of Duty tournament? What venue will have us if we're traveling to a different location? We're fortunate enough to have an esports arena over at Shenandoah, but if we want to host something specific to a particular region, we need to consider what travel might look like, what lodging might look like, and how we're paying for all of this. The venue, when we're thinking about running a tournament in a new space, there's a couple of things that need to happen. We need to, one, talk to the venue, make sure they're okay with us having an esports tournament there, and then visit the venue. A walkthrough is incredibly important. It helps you identify how you're going to be utilizing the space. Is it not only sort of like ADA compliant? Is it even really all that accessible via driving? Will people need to bus to the venue? Is there going to be looking at sort of MAGFest, we've got a huge influx of people, and the majority of people that are staying nearby are taking shuttles in, so what does that look like? Is parking going to be a nightmare? And sort of figuring out what the limitations of the venue are going to be so that we can adequately utilize it. All of our tournaments as of late require some level of internet. So we need to make sure that there's adequate internet and accessible internet and fast internet so that we can, one, play the games, but make sure our PCs are all updated and have a successful tournament. Not only just in person, but also if we have a little bit of extra bandwidth to be able to also broadcast it for our online audience. Tourney ops, figuring out the sort of, again, I'm going to say scope a lot. Are we having an 8-person tournament? Is it like the top 8 of something? Or are we trying to do a qualifier, a big open event? Are we inviting a specific amount of teams to come in and figuring out how many people are going to be sort of competing, what the schedule of the schedule of the venue availability is like, and how we can fit the best competition into that space as possible. One of the things that we grapple with all the time with our tournaments is what our overall bracket looks like, because timing-wise, single elimination is just the best. We get the teams in, we eliminate them, we all get to go home. For a team that's traveling, a player that's traveling to your event, you got to consider probably a minimum number of games that they would expect to play at that tournament to feel fulfilled. Especially if there's an entry fee, you want to make sure that they feel like their money was worth the experience of coming out and trying to compete, even if they go over and they don't win a single match. If you are running a double elimination, you're going to exponentially increase the amount of time that your tournament will take, which is that's sort of the balancing act that we play, is player fulfillment, overall experience, fitting it within the schedule, and it's a juggling act that's really tricky to pull off. We've been fortunate enough we've run a lot of tournaments that they just go over, just a lot for more time. Please don't try and do back-to-back matches, because one match will go over and the rest of your schedule is completely blown up. But yeah, so tourney ops is a whole nother field that Fernando can talk a little bit more specifically on when we get into sort of the week of. Logistics and marketing, both of those are kind of covered in sort of what they have to talk about. Homogenizing your online presence so that your marketing is effective and you're not portraying different messages and different information across all of your different channels is really important. And just getting people to know about what the tournament is, not only for the players, but also the attendees. Maybe people want to come watch it as well. Cool. All right, that's enough from me for a minute. Why don't I pass it over to Chase for aligning our stakeholders.
Thanks, Zander. Yeah, so a lot of what Zander said in terms of getting everyone on the same page is what I'll talk about. When we sat back and we were like, what topics should we talk about when we're saying you're running your events wrong? I think the number one thing is communication. And I think we all as adults or as emerging adults, or maybe if you're well into your career, you're nodding your head and going, yes, communication is a vital aspect that I wish maybe as a kid that was more pushed. So I think aligning stakeholders is honestly where a lot of the event can go wrong. So some things that I've noticed at both events that I've ran and events that I've gone to, some pet peeves that I have when it comes to aligning your stakeholders when I go to events, right? So it's usually one small team planning everything. An internal conflict on event scope. Maybe some person is like, I'm not running a Diddy Kong racing event, I want to run Mario Kart. And another person's like, I don't want to run either of those games, I want to run the new Sonic game. And it's like, well, you guys got to determine what your scope is. Communication breakdown throughout planning, zero follow-up once the event is concluded, and then a lack of commitment to contractual agreements, which is a big one in the grassroots space for esports. Yeah, if you have friends that do gig work, or if you do gig work yourself, you probably have seen a horror story or two online about people not getting paid or getting paid months after the event, after their contract was due. I know I did an event in May that had a 60-day timeline on my contract, and I got paid in November. It was a $2,000 event. It was $2,000 I was waiting to hit my pay, waiting to hit for like 6 months, 7 months. So that's that was a pretty notable event too. So you scale that down, that trickles down, it's an issue. So I think that these were probably my biggest pet peeves going into it. So, how do we align our stakeholders? Well, I think the best way you can go about it is building your framework first. So establishing, and when I say stakeholder, I want to be clear. A stakeholder is a business term, but it's really anyone who has engagement in your event from the top all the way down to the bottom. It's the person who's footing the bill all the way down to the janitor who's running around and helping clean up at the event. Those are your stakeholders for the event, anyone with buy-in. So this is actually a picture from Honeypot, the tournament I talked about earlier. This is from 7. We ran this back in September in a sports complex on a basketball court. Super sick. We had a little over 400 participants for that event. So certainly not MAGFest. But number one, establish your KPIs, your key performance indicators from your clients and your community leads. Who's involved at the top? What do they want to get out of this, right? If the Gaylord goes to MAGFest and says, hey, next year we want a 24-hour venue, and MAGFest goes, we don't want a 24-hour venue, that's now a big conflict in that key performance indicator, right? Because there's now a very different event scope. Number 2, task your main team to build a one-page proposal to pitch at the next event meeting. So bring all your people together, say, here's our idea of what we have. Everyone individually go out, write a one-pager, and then in the next meeting, everyone come together on your core team, establish what those ideas are that everyone came up with. When you do that, you're condensing a 2-hour, 3-hour meeting into like 30 minutes. Because instead of everyone just pitching their ideas at the meeting, you have something tangible. You can all go through and go, wait, I like that you said we can get this done in one day in a double elimination bracket. You're saying that the single elim bracket's going to take 3 days. You're nuts. Like there's no way we're doing that. 4, create a core event page using your one-page doc as a blueprint. So make your event easy to find online for people that either want to cosplay at the event, vend at the event, or attend the event. So that can be as easy as throwing up a Start GG or a tournament, a challenge page, or making Facebook pages, or making Reddit posts, or hey, doing all 3, because that's how you're going to get the most exposure, is getting it out there. And then 5, recreate those event pages over and over. Next, assemble your teams. I'm a big believer that there's 3 individual teams that go into running an event. There's your internal team, your external team, and then your day of teams or your week of teams, which Fernando will talk a little bit more about. But your internal, that's your equipment and venue, basically anyone internal to your group, your core planning group, whereas external is all of the information that's being pushed out. So your marketing, branding, local engagement, sponsor, vendor outreach, graphics, all of these individual white lines for teams, I usually recommend for a grassroots event, having 3 to 4 folks or volunteers, interns, or people that are involved with the event on those teams to make sure that they run successfully. Because if you put, say for instance, getting rules and safety information out on one person, and that one person falls off the face of the earth, and you're a week before your event, now you have that to add on your laundry list of things that you're trying to get done to prep for the event. So it's really important to delegate properly and make sure that everyone is on the same page, aligning your stakeholders.
Make sure there's fail-safes too.
Yeah, major fail-safes, so that if, hey, I'm checking in, it's been 2 weeks, I haven't heard from you, you don't get the news flash that they've been gone, like they went and joined the Peace Corps or something. And then post-event reports. I think oftentimes grassroots communities and a lot of actually major esports events miss this. They do not follow up after the event. We go, yep, okay, event's done, great, we can all go home. That's not how it works. You gotta have something to give back to the people who footed the bill for the event, as well as the folks who will wanna come in future years. So after completing payout, you wanna build your post-event report, and it should be a snapshot of the event. Your attendance, sponsors, analytics, social media metrics, something I do at every event I run, and I encourage you to do if you run events, have someone walk around with candy and a 1-minute survey. And you're gonna get a ton of people to fill out that survey that you can then take back to the people who spent $10,000, $20,000 for you to have internet for the weekend, say. It's a very, very nice touch, because then they can go, oh, this individual person, you got 100 people at the event and you got 80 people that filled out the survey. That's pretty good. It should answer the question, the post-event report, if we do this again, should we do this again, and if so, how? And then I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is a picture from that honeypot event. There was a major upset on stage, and you can just see the excitement in the crowd. And this ranges from people that were working the event, you can see me in the second row, all the way to commentary leads, to people that are vending at the event, to attendees, but you don't think of that when you see this picture. You think, oh my God, that looks hype, and I want to be in that room. That's the stuff that you want to put on your post-event report. And then pay out on time. Danny DeVito, he wants you to pay out on time. You got to pay out on time. All praise Danny. Don't disappoint him.
Cool. So we've talked a lot about kind of the prep of getting to actually run the event, getting into a position where everybody knows what's going on, the dates are happening. So I'm here to talk about what happens when it's actually time to run it. The week of, what you're planning, how things are moving along. So first thing, training designations. We generally break this into 2 different portions. One is paid staff. In paid staff, they're very in-depth, they're specific. They're people who are getting the most benefit out of this event. At Shenandoah, for us, it's usually it'll be our 5 staff members plus the organization that we're working with. Their people who are working full-time on this as well, but people who are getting paid to be at your event, paid staff. So their roles are a lot more in-depth. Usually they're trained more in advance, a couple weeks in advance, because they're team leads, leading a couple of people to, the entire referee staff. They're trained in systems and tools that, like the check-in system, maybe the payment system, TOing systems, everything has a system, and 1,000 people know how to use it, but somebody had to teach those 1,000 people how to use it. So paid staff kind of takes care of that. And then they know the contingencies, right? You don't want to put too much on somebody who who volunteers for your event, shows up the day of, and kind of gets trained there. And you don't want to have to run them through, this is what the bracket format is. And also, if that doesn't go right, we're doing step B, C, and D. So the paid staff have more time on their hands. They're paid for this. You can ask more of them. They're more accountable for the problems and resolutions that come from the event. So if any problems happen, usually the volunteers will go to the paid staff. The paid staff, in our cases, will convene as a group and then we'll address the issue. And then in their training, more emphasis on decision making and leadership. So they won't always be like there in the pit working, but their overarching job is to make sure that everything's running smoothly. If we hit a fork in the road somewhere, they're the ones that have to make that decision, whether it's good or bad. We'll figure that out later, but we have to get this tournament moving now. Where most events rely heavily on is volunteers. We use a lot of volunteers. Luckily, again, having an esports degree as part of our major, or as our major, these are all of our students who volunteered. I believe this is for a Rocket League tournament that happened. We run in Myrtle Beach, or used to run in Myrtle Beach. But basically, we meet with them. Everybody has a specific job, task focused. So this meeting, we're going over the rules and regulations of what, when to show up, where to be, when we're leaving, where we're staying, that kind of stuff. But as far as training them in their specific jobs, we have them split in this room. So left side of the picture is administrators. So our head referees, our director of esports, our second production runner, and then on the top right are general event managers. So people working check-in, people working just running teams back and forth from the rooms and the restaurants. And then bottom right is all of our referees. So people working on managing the teams, managing the bracket, that kind of stuff. So training for them typically happens day of. Again, they're volunteers, so you don't want somebody who's very passionate about your event and about working with you you don't want to ask them to be there, after their 9 to 5, you come in and you do another 5 to 9, So volunteers will have a little bit less time, so having a more streamlined way of showing them what they're doing and specific things that they're doing. Let your paid staff dictate anything that happens outside of that one task. And that's what we always tell them. If you don't know the answer, if you don't know what's going on, or you're not 100% sure on it, come get one of us. That's fine. It's not your role to know, it's your role to perform, basically. And then kind of the breakdown is volunteers are used to support staff goals, and staff are used to create the goals. So that's where we make that difference. That difference is we kind of come up with the goals with the stakeholders, and now the volunteers help support all of that. So they know the vision, they understand everything that's going on, but they don't have a huge role in deciding what's going on. They're helping run everything smoothly. So finalized event schedule. This is a picture from our Myrtle Beach event. This is a 2-day Rocket League and Smash tournament at a venue called the Hangout. If you've ever been to the Hangout, it's chaotic. They play music every 45 minutes. But we essentially have to drive about 8.5 hours to get down to that venue with not just the 5 staff members, but also around 15 students, and then meeting our volunteers down there, meeting other paid staff from other universities. But when we get to this event, the week of, we're sending out this presentable schedule. You've had a lot of things out in the ether up to this point, a lot of things that maybe aren't locked down. You don't know if this is going to happen, if this is going to happen. it's week of, it's time to lock it down. Sometimes you're gonna have to cut things out. Sometimes you can put things in, but people need to know in advance so that they know where they need to be and when they need to be there. We do the steps that we kind of take for this is we make this presentable to staff and volunteers, having the full schedule out, because the 5 of us can really look at a schedule and say, yeah, this is perfect. And then we hand it to somebody else on our staff and they say, you're missing like 6 teams or 6 matches here. So it gives you a little bit more leeway time before you present it to the public to find any small discrepancies, anything that might be missing. We include setup day schedule, and I'll get to that in the next slide. But basically, to ensure your event is running smoothly, your event should be fully done and planned out a week, at least finalized a week in advance. Ensuring it's readable and easily accessible. How many times have you gotten a schedule and you're like, I don't know what any of this means. I don't know what I'm looking at. Somebody could read this to me and I still wouldn't know what you're saying. Or somebody goes, here's a picture of a schedule. And you're like, oh, great, awesome. Where do I find it? And they're like, okay, so you're going to want to find a QR code around the venue. You scan that QR code, then you click the link at the bottom of the page, then you fill out the form, and then it takes you to another link, and the schedule will be in one of those folders. It happens a lot more than we like to admit. Just on the back end, organizational processes sometimes happen, or sometimes they don't. But ensuring that it's readable and easily accessible. We post ours. We do a lot of stuff online, and in esports, we're doing a lot of stuff through Discord. So we'll have a scheduled channel where it's just specifically for the schedule, and we'll post it one day at a time, and then the full schedule so that we can point people exactly to which one they should be looking at. And then the most important one, make it public before the event. Your staff knows it, you know it. Now the people attending your event need to know what's going on. The amount of times I've gone to an event and they're like, why aren't you here for your match? And we're like, well, you told me in a DM that we should be there at 10 a.m. And they're like, well, your match is at like 9 a.m. And we're like, well, where's the schedule? And they're like, somebody has it. They didn't share it with you? And we're like, no, they didn't. That actually happened last year to us, and our Call of Duty team had to forfeit their first match. But setup day. So you got to your venue, you've kind of gone through the entire process of understanding, building your schedule. So you get to the venue. Number one is have a plan. We have so many people that work on events at any given time, where there's people that are just sitting around or people that are doing the same task, and we run into this all the time of too many cooks in the kitchen. One person is running HDMI cables, and then somebody else says, I'm going to go run HDMI cables, and then they move the HDMI cables that were already ran. So having a plan of who's doing what, where they're going, and how they're doing it. We talk a lot about staging. So when we set up for these events where we have a quick turnaround time, we basically take all the boxes off of the pallet or out of the truck, and we put them where they're going to go. And that's what we do. We put the monitor, the PC, the mouse, and the keyboard. We set them down in one spot before we even open them. That way we can make sure that we have everything. And then one person stands up and then sets up that full setup. So it's a more streamlined process for us so that everybody has a job, they know what they're doing, and you're not stepping on anybody else's toes. Having roles goes into that a lot. If you saw in our introduction, we all have a couple of different roles, from lecturers. Usually during event day, it's like tournament operations, talent, tournament operations, broadcast and production for Ian. So we have team leads that work in every section. So if your team lead knows the plan, it's a lot easier for 4 of us to collaborate and figure out a solution if something's missing than for the other 15 people to try and figure it out amongst themselves, because it gets crazy.
And then they got to go for approval to us. So
Yep.
It's like you just wasted 15 minutes. You should have just came to us.
Yep. And then making sure you have everything. We do this check probably 4 to 5 times before we leave for an event, 4 to 5 times when we get there, 4 to 5 times when we're setting up. And then we're like, all right, we're good to go. And then somebody's like, hey, you're missing like every single Ethernet cord. And we're like, whoa, that's weird. 6 different people checked this. How are we missing that? And you know, I'm never the one that has that issue. So I'm always gonna pawn it off that way.
Why are you looking over here?
Because even if I did the initial check, it's not my fault because I got it double checked. So it's the next person's fault. Which leads into the next thing, and I think it's the most important thing, and that's why I wrote it 5 times, is test everything. And if you think you've done enough testing, you haven't. It's not possible to test anything enough for it to work.
What did they say about assuming? Yeah.
But testing, just test. We have gone through the process of stress testing everything, and the day of the tournament, the power just goes out. And we just realized, okay, we tested everything, but we didn't anticipate that somebody would want to warm up separately on their own switch, so they plugged in their own dock somewhere else. Now power's out, and we're like, whoa. So test. If you think you've tested enough things, you haven't, but be reasonable. Set a time where you're done testing. For us, we try to get setup done for our events in our arena around 2 to 3 p.m., and then we'll be testing until around 9 p.m., just running people through what's going on. Referees get this like new fresh look at the tournament and problems that can arise. Broadcast gets to see if if we can actually connect to a lobby, if we had IP bans on your initial list. For one of our Call of Duty tournaments. We went through the entire process of getting whitelisted. Blizzard said, you guys are good to go. Everything's set. Here's the confirmation email. Here's everything. Have fun at your event. We said, we still want to test it. So we invited all the teams to come in and run scrims the night before. And during the scrims, the first 2 teams logged in. They were great. I was like, awesome. I'm probably going to go home now. The 3rd team sat down, and then the entire BattleNet server crashed. And we were like, well, that's awesome. What do we do? So we were able to contact somebody at Blizzard that had been on the highway for about 20 minutes and said, I'll turn around and fix this. Don't worry about it. It's not your fault. But if we hadn't tested that, that would have happened the next day during round 1, and that was something that took about 6 hours to fix.
Well, even like the night before an event, a patch can come out, and then you get in the morning of, and it's like, oh, great, we have a 5 gig update on 40 PCs.
How many people play League of Legends? How many of you have been hit with the instant, you update the game, and then you log in, and they're like, now there's a 40 gig patch. So that happened during Virginia High School League state championships 2 years ago, where they released a patch, not an update, a patch at 9 a.m. when our tournament started, round 1 at 9 a.m. So the first team sat down, they warmed up, they were great. Then they had their team meetings, came back onto the stage, and then went, ref, nothing's working. And we went, great. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Sit there and wait. So it doesn't matter how much you test everything. Some things are just out of your control. So testing is really just a way to make sure that everything that is in your control doesn't go wrong.
If you ever hear someone say it should work at your event, check them on that. Every time.
This should be fine has killed us so many times.
Yep. Cool. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about balancing experiences from the online and in-person perspective. We have about 8 minutes left, so I'll try and breeze through this. Ian, if you were here, would be like, what the heck, guys? You didn't give me very much time. But since it's me taking his section or us collaborating on trying to talk through his a little bit, it should be fine. So, with esports events, it's important, we've talked a lot about what the in-person experience is going to be like, but there's a whole other realm of people that aren't necessarily going to travel to your event that want to watch online. And the interesting thing about esports is that it being on a platform like YouTube or Twitch, it's free to watch. And so there's a lot more of a sort of incentive for people to watch your tournaments online, because oftentimes the experience might be as good as or better on Twitch than it would be in person. If you're sitting all the way in the back of the room and you can't see this, then you might be an in-person audience member that is probably not going to be having as good of a time as someone that can look at their screen, if I were streaming this, and be able to just read everything quite easily, right? The same thing goes for gameplay, graphics, even roaming cams, where you can really get a connection to the players by having somebody just right up in the players' faces, showing their emotions and reactions to winning and losing moments. The online experience can be so important. So making sure that you can balance those two, because going too far one way or the other can really be a detriment to either audience that you're sort of letting go to the wayside. So looking at the live event feel, having great audio so that everybody can hear the gameplay, hear the commentators quite clearly, having that audio balanced well can be a really big boon to how people perceive it. Visuals are obviously really important, but audio can be just as important. But talking about visuals specifically, you need gigantic screens that are viewable from all the angles that you intend for people to be at. You can only do so much. If people want to try and watch from right here in the corner, they're not going to have as good of a time. You prepare for what you have planned for. They put all the seats here and they put this nice big screen here for you all to see it and enjoy it, and that's what they planned for. So
there's an event in Chicago, Frosty Faustings, and their whole venue, if you've ever been, is surrounded wall to wall by projectors in all the games. So when you walk in, you have like 20 streams that you can watch at any given point in time.
If you were at DreamHack this past October, Clash of Clans broke the world record for largest continuous screen in the world for an event. So
that's cool.
It was Clash, but 100 times, I think.
that's a lot of Clash.
Clash the long way.
In-person engagement, right? You want somebody energetic to be introducing the event, engaging people in between matches, through the lulls. There's moments where there's a match ends and you probably have 15, 20 minutes between that match ending and the next one beginning. Teams need to get set up and get warmed up and make sure all the peripherals are set. So having some level of engagement from your talent, usually a stage host that can go around and talk with people, do interviews, just trying to bridge the gap between the reason that you're mostly there for, which is the esports, but making sure that there's a continual level of engagement for your fans can go a long way for fulfillment for your audience members. And then, as Nando put it, a posted schedule for the just overall event. And sometimes there's differences in what is the overall event schedule, and then also what is going to be shown. Not every match. Sometimes there's a side stage where the match is just played and there's no commentary over it and there's not any screening. It's just a way to further the bracket. And sometimes you need to have that reflected on a schedule that shows what we're broadcasting, what we're showing in-house. Or maybe that's exclusively being shown online and you can find it here. So here being a website that, so that's the live event feel. Going into the online audience.
We might only have time for the options, the pictures.
Oh, yeah,
if we
okay.
want to go through those.
So, I want to, we put up some examples. We'll go over to CECC, which is the Collegiate Esports Commissioners Cup. Mm-hmm. This happens in Arlington, Texas at the Esports Stadium. It is a fantastic arena, and we've been lucky enough to be able to go there for a number of collegiate events, not hosted by us, but we get to work those events, participate in it, and sometimes be able to bring students to also work those events. But
in terms of scope for this event too, this is the biggest collegiate esports sports event, you get a bid by winning your conference. So your conference where you're usually competing, like your regional or national level conference, that's like small potatoes in comparison to this because you're playing the other winners of all the other conferences.
Yeah, so some of the best teams in collegiate all here to compete. And this is an example of what they do on some of their streams. And I've got a couple more, but this is a great example of, okay, we get to see all of the, and looking at this left side with the Rocket League, we get to see all of the player cams continually, and sometimes they'll slide them in and out for goals or great saves, or maybe just showing them continually through all of overtime because the tension is built, and that's a really great part of your narrative, is making sure that you can showcase what those players are feeling at any given moment. But also, just giving all the information that is necessary. And sometimes, I don't know if any of you guys have watched RLCS or even just a Rocket League stream of a streamer, there isn't a lot of information unless you access the API and pull boost levels from all the different players. But they do a really great job here of showing all the different boost levels, so you can know which player has the ability to make an impactful play, an impactful aerial, very readable score bug up here showing the score and also indicating which team is further along in the series. This is still just game one, but it also indicates it's a best of 7. And then branding for the event itself and the game clock. And then a very legible on the right here scoreboard from the previous match, a spot for a sponsor. U.S. Army sponsored this event, so they're satisfying some sponsorships as well. But all in all, incredible online experience from this event specifically. Their production team is just fantastic.
And it was in Arlington, Texas. If you want to go to the next slide, we'll just show these real quick. Oh wait, this was also, I think, online.
Yeah, so this is the broadcast specifically for a crew battle. An online collegiate crew battle is 4 players on a team, and each player has 3 stocks, and you go through each player with 3 stocks and move on to the next one. If you say, I choose Cloud, you choose Pac-Man, I beat you, I have to stay Cloud moving into player 2, but I keep the same amount of stocks that I might have lost against you.
It's a Pokemon battle.
Yeah, it's a Pokemon battle for Smash Brothers. So, but it's a unique way that Collegiate specifically does their Smash competitions with rosters of 4 people. But there's a lot going on there, right? And so what this does, and I think this is a beautiful representation of showcasing sort of that complex idea and sort of complex format, is it shows all the different players. It shows they don't actually have to determine the order outright. They just determine the next player up, so you can kind of play a little bit of chess in what your main player might be sending out, who you might want to try and put out a counter. So there's a lot of variables that go into it, and this does a great way of showcasing, okay, J-Jaw playing Kirby only has 1 stock going into Beastly in this next match. It's got player cams, it's got the stocks remaining from either team, who's playing, and then the match count, so it's a best of 3, so they'll go through all 12 stocks and then reset and play a best of 3. But this is a fantastic representation, gives you all the information that you need while also giving you the gameplay, and of course once they go to gameplay they'll go to full screen, but really cool way to do this, and this is online. Now going into Chase, who actually went to this event, took a couple of pictures, and I'll let you walk through these a little bit.
Yeah, we'll end on that. I know that we're right at 5:30, so I was trying to rush it along. I was like, but this is what the stage looks like in eSports Arlington. So you have graphics in front of the players playing that represent the school. We got Winthrop on the left and Fisher on the right. You have everything from the actual game going on in the middle to, you can see the caster cam on the left side where you're actually watching the casters react in real time, and then you have player cams on the right side, and then before the games they actually show the whole roster up on the stage so you can see all the players that are going to be competing. This by far in between is the best live event experience I think I've ever seen. Shout out Kyler Tandle, who puts on that production.
Cool. All right. So plan all you want, but stuff is going to go wrong. So stay calm, have contingency plans, backup plans, fail safes, communicate with your team, and rely on your staff to execute. Thank you so much, everyone. Go out there and run your events. Woo!